Hello everyone, I'm Marianne Inglis, and I would like to tell you the story of my maternal grandparents who came to Australia in the 1920s. My grandparents were Greek and came from a part of Turkey called Asia Minor. For millennia this area was part of the Great Ottoman Empire, a multi-ethnic state. In the aftermath of World War I, the Greco-Turkish War occurred. Greece lost, and the Turkish army turned on the Christian population. All the Greek families fled for their lives. This event is known in Greece as the Katastrophe, or the catastrophe, of September 1922. My grandfather Mark Girdis was the youngest in a family of 8. Mark came to Australia to work with his brothers in a cafe at Fortitude Valley, Brisbane in 1923. He worked hard learning the business and the English language, and after a few years, in accordance with custom, he wrote to his family in Greece to find him a bride. The Girdis family were friends with the Gadzounis or Gannis family. The Gannis family had owned tobacco plantations in Asia Minor, but had lost everything in 1922. Both parents had also died, leaving their children, 2 sons and 2 daughters, alone. Mark's parents chose one of these daughters, Ourania, as a bride for their son. On the 10th of February 1924, in a triple wedding ceremony, Ourania Gannis and Mark Girdis were married. Mark was 29 at the time and Ourania 24. They went to Toowoomba and bought an old butcher shop in Ruthven Street. They turned it into a cafe and served light refreshments. The family lived above the shop, and their 3 children, Nicholas, Evriglia and Maritza, were born there. As people were unsure of how to anglicise the name Evriglia, they began calling her Mary, the name she was best known as all her life. After a few years, they brought out Ourania's 2 brothers and her sister, but sadly her sister died as a young woman from tuberculosis. Mark began experimenting with making confectionery. He began by making a small saucepan of caramel fudge. When he sold that, he made a bigger batch of fudge, and in this way he rapidly grew the confectionery side of his business. Girdis's candy store became famous for its walking stick candy canes and huge bullseye boiled lollies. He made homemade ice cream, and his brother-in-law, Con, bought a horse and cart and sold the ice cream door to door. In 1937, the family returned to live in Brisbane. They also bought a holiday home on the waterfront at Labrador on the Gold Coast. When Mark and Ourania were on holidays, a very dear relative, Margariti Karistinos, would cycle over every morning at 4 a.m. There, he and Mark would sit on the front balcony overlooking the sea. They sipped their hot, sweet Greek coffee and read poetry to each other as they watched the first rays of dawn. Margariti strummed gentle music on his mandolin, and they sang softly together. Mark's great love of music meant that each of the children received a musical education. The family formed a musical group, with Mark and Maritza playing violin, Nick the flute, and Mary the piano. The family group played all the favourite Greek folk songs at parties and gatherings. During World War II, they played their music on radio station 4BH to raise money for the war effort. Mark loved reading, and he built up a library of books on literature, religion, philosophy and poetry, all in the English language. I thought that it was quite amazing that he was able to read this standard of English, a second language he had learned by himself without any formal teaching. I have been told that my grandmother, Ourania, was a quiet, gentle and elegant lady, and so she appears to me from her photos. She embroidered beautiful tablecloths, napkins and doilies for her daughter's briga or trousseau. However, Ourania suffered for many years with poor health caused by kidney disease, and they knew that she was dying. Suddenly and unexpectedly, however, Mark died of a pulmonary embolism or blood clot to the lungs at the age of 53, and Ourania died 6 sad months later at 48. The family were bereft. The details of my grandparents' lives in Asia Minor are very sketchy. All the civil records were deliberately destroyed by the Turks in 1922. The events they lived through were so traumatic that they never wanted to speak of them to their children, and their deaths were so premature that they never had the chance to pass on their family history to the next generation. I have no memory of my grandparents. They died when I was just 18 months old. But still, there is much that I have learned about them. I know that they lived through tumultuous times, but I see that through all their trials, they maintained their values of faith and family life. They strove to find the beauty in life wherever they could, and they always sought to do the very best they could for their children.